The millionaire was shocked to see an elderly couple collapsed in the rain outside his mansion. Before continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. The rain fell like a curtain of silver threads, pounding against the earth with an unforgiving rhythm. The manicured lawns of Hale Manor, usually pristine, green, and carefully tended, were now little more than slick mud pools, their symmetry ruined by the relentless storm. The towering mansion loomed in the distance, its cream-colored stone walls glowing faintly against the storm-darkened sky, windows gleaming like eyes watching over the storm. It was a house of wealth, of prestige, of privilege. Hale Manor had long stood as a symbol of power in the city, the place where decisions were made, fortunes grew, and lives were controlled from the polished office of Damian Hale. But in front of this fortress of prosperity, under the skeletal branches of an ancient oak tree, sat a scene that clashed so violently with its backdrop it seemed almost unreal. An elderly couple, drenched and broken, leaned against one another in the storm. Their clothes were soaked through, clinging to their frail bodies, their gray hair plastered flat against their heads, water streaming down their lined faces. An old suitcase lay toppled beside them, its rusted clasps failing to contain the bundle of fragile memories spilling into the mud, yellowed letters, faded black and white photographs, and a thin wool blanket that was now useless against the downpour. They had nothing left but each other, and even that bond seemed fragile, trembling under the weight of exhaustion and cold. That was when Damian Hale arrived. The millionaire's sleek black sedan rolled into the driveway, its headlights cutting through the curtain of rain. Damian stepped out, his polished leather shoes splashing into puddles. He adjusted the lapel of his expensive gray suit, prepared to stride into his mansion without a second thought. But then he froze, his gaze locked on the figures beneath the oak. His chest tightened, his pulse quickened. For a moment, he thought his mind was deceiving him. He was accustomed to boardrooms and gala dinners, not as stumbling upon scenes that looked like something torn from the raw edges of human suffering. The sight stopped him cold. The elderly man was slumped against a tree trunk, his body trembling with each labored breath. His hand still clutched the woman's, as though it were the only lifeline he had left. The woman, her dress clinging to her frail frame, rested her head on his shoulder, her lips parted, as if she were whispering words that could not quite leave her body. The rain beat down on them mercilessly, and something inside Damian cracked. For years he had built Hale Enterprises on an iron will and unyielding ambition. He was proud to call himself self-made, the boy who rose from nothing, carving his empire through grit and calculation. But with success had come hardness, a habit of looking past suffering if it didn't affect his balance sheets. Yet here, suffering was no longer across town. It wasn't tucked inside a newspaper headline or reduced to a statistic on a screen. It was on his front lawn, close enough for him to see the rain dripping from their trembling fingers, close enough to notice the faded photograph lying face up in the mud, an image of the couple in their youth, smiling, vibrant, full of life. And suddenly, the memories Damian had spent years burying clawed their way back. He remembered his own childhood, the lean years when hunger had hollowed out his stomach, when his mother had worked double shifts to keep a roof over their heads, when his father had collapsed after endless shifts at the factory, the days when his family had teetered on the edge of collapse. Had fate dealt him a crueler hand, his parents could have been sitting here in the storm, just like this couple. The realization shook him. For the first time in years, the millionaire forgot his wealth, forgot his polished shoes, forgot his iron image of success. He walked forward, rain soaking through his suit, crouching low beside them. "Sir? Ma'am? Can you hear me?" Damian's voice cracked with urgency. The elderly man stirred faintly, his eyelids fluttering open. His pupils tried to focus, but struggled against the weight of exhaustion. The woman's grip on his hand tightened, fragile but fierce, as though afraid that letting go meant losing everything. Damian gestured sharply toward the mansion. "Bring blankets. Hot tea. Now!" His voice rang out against the storm, carrying to the staff who had rushed to the doorway, shocked at their employer's sudden desperation. Within minutes, attendants hurried with thick blankets, rushing to cover the couple. Damian slid his arm beneath the man's back, helping him upright. He was stunned by how little weight the man carried, his frame all but bones beneath wet fabric. "Stay with me," Damian urged. "You're safe now. You're safe." Together, they half-carried, half-led the couple across the driveway, their soaked shoes squelching against the marble steps. And as the heavy doors of Hale Manor swung open, the sight of wealth and warmth inside clashed violently with the dripping figures entering. For the first time in a long time, the pristine halls of the mansion became a shelter, not for executives or politicians, but for the forgotten. Inside, firelight flickered from the grand hearth, washing warmth over their pale faces. The woman shivered violently, clutching the blanket tighter as she whispered her name in a trembling voice. "My name is Eleanor Carter. This is my husband, Samuel." Damian knelt, meeting her gaze. "I'm Damian Hale. You're safe now. Please, tell me what happened." Her words came haltingly, like fragile glass that might break if pressed too hard. They had lived in a modest home, on the edge of town. Samuel had once been a carpenter, building furniture with his hands, proud of his craft. But age had stripped his strength, and bills had piled higher than their meager income could manage. One missed payment became 2, then 3. The bank had taken their house. Their children, grown long ago, had drifted away, distant and unreachable. With nowhere to go, they packed what little they had left into the old suitcase and walked. Days blurred together in exhaustion until their bodies had given out here, at the gates of Hale Manor. As Damian listened, guilt twisted deep inside his chest. He thought of his estranged brother, with whom he hadn't spoken in years after their parents' inheritance tore them apart. He thought of every time he had chosen profit over people, every deal that demanded his attention more than family. Eleanor and Samuel's story wasn't just a tragedy of circumstance. It was a mirror, a warning, and he could no longer ignore it. The days that followed changed everything. Damian ensured doctors came daily to check their health. Fresh clothes replaced their drenched rags. Meals, hot, fragrant, nourishing, were brought to their rooms. Slowly, life returned to Samuel's face. Eleanor's hands, once trembling, grew steadier as she found herself smiling again, even laughing softly at times. But it wasn't just the couple who changed. Damian himself transformed. He began visiting them each morning, abandoning the habit of burying himself in endless office calls. He listened as Samuel spoke of the pride he once took in his carpentry, how each chair or table he built carried a piece of his heart. He listened as Eleanor described raising their children, of evenings filled with lullabies and simple meals that tasted sweeter than any banquet. And each story peeled away another layer of the hardened armor around Damian's heart. He found himself remembering his own childhood joys, the scent of his mother's cooking, the sound of his father's laughter before exhaustion stole it away. He remembered what it felt like to measure wealth not in dollars, but in love. It was Eleanor who said it one evening as they sat near the fire. "You have everything, Mr. Hale, but I think, for a long time, you've had nothing at all." The words hit him harder than any boardroom loss. And she was right. Weeks later, when Samuel and Eleanor were strong enough to stand tall again, Damian drove them not to a shelter, but to a small cottage he had purchased for them on the edge of his estate. It was modest, 2 bedrooms, a garden patch, a porch that looked out over rolling hills. But it was theirs. As he placed the keys into Eleanor's trembling hands, her eyes filled with tears. "We don't deserve this," she whispered. "You deserve more than I can ever give," Damian said softly. "This is only the beginning." Samuel stepped forward, laying a frail hand on Damian's shoulder. His voice, though weak, carried a depth that words rarely did. "You saved us. But more than that, you saved yourself." Damian swallowed hard, his throat burning. As he turned back toward Hale Manor, the storm clouds had broken, sunlight streaming golden across the lawns. And for the first time in years, Damian felt lighter, not because of his fortune, not because of his success, but because he had remembered what it meant to be human. If this story has touched your heart, please subscribe to Kindness Stories USA. Description: